I love this game. Hey everyone, Sornar Rocks is here, and today I want to talk a little bit about Resident Evil Village. Now, I beat this game probably about, I think a week ago? Yeah, it had to be like last Thursday, last Friday, around that time. And I've just been playing Mercenaries mode, and that's about it. I didn't really get too much out of Mercenaries, although I have been doing some research. I noticed that there's a lot of better YouTubers out there who can actually get S ranks on this thing. I don't know why. I can never get higher than A. I don't know why that is. But Resident Evil Village, the game itself, just talking about the single player story here, it's actually really a lot of fun. Now, if you've been on my channel before, you probably know, or if you don't, here's a little recap. The last Resident Evil game I played was the Resident Evil 3 remake, and I thought it was okay. I remember just finding it okay. And I actually got into a bit of a, I'm not going to say argument, I'll say a discussion with another YouTuber who, for some reason, couldn't believe that I would think that I would think that Resident Evil 3, the remake, mind you, which I think the remake came out in was it 2020 or 2019? I don't know. I think Resident Evil 2 remake came out in 2019, and the 3 remake came out in 2020. Either way, I might have got those years mixed up. But either way, I remember getting into a discussion with a person, and they just found it very odd why I just didn't absolutely love Resident Evil 3, and it was just like, oh, maybe your view would change later on down the line or something. My view has not changed. Let me just go ahead and say it. I have not changed my mind about how I think about the Resident Evil 3 remake. I thought it was okay. I thought it was passable enough. It just couldn't reach the standard of the Resident Evil 2 remake. As far as right now, it's still my favorite out of the newer Resident Evils. As far as Resident Evil Village compared to its predecessor, which is Resident Evil 7, I see that there's a lot of mixed reaction on the internet. Not about whether the game's good or bad. Everyone says that, for the most people that I've spoken to, they seem to like Village, and they seem to like Village more. Same thing with me. I honestly like Resident Evil 8 more. I like Village more than I did with 7. Now, I've spoken about Resident Evil 7 before, and I just said like there was just a lack of variety in the standard enemies. I didn't really care for the mold all that much. I think I mentioned it in my Resident Evil 3 video, as far as saying I don't like Resident Evil 3. And even though I thought that game was okay, I would say I can deal with the standard zombie stuff. But as far as the new Resident Evils, as they start to branch out and do some more, I really like what Village has done with these likings and sort of like vampire-esque sort of things. And then you got Monroe and all that, and his little fish transformation, and oh my god, the haunted house, man. Jesus, come on. I cannot be the only one that got freaked out by the little fetus baby or whatever the heck. Ooh. That was a tough time. I really gotta say that one kind of really elevated it up there into real horror. I didn't find Resident Evil 7 that's scary. There was a couple of jump scares in it that I just find jump scares lame. I think they're like a cheap way of getting scares, and honestly, it wasn't even until there was one portion in Resident Evil 7 where I actually was low on ammo to the point where I couldn't even buy any. I just had nothing, and I had to move on to the next section, and there was enemies there, and you can't defend yourself. It then turned into a bit of Outlast there a little bit. So I mean, besides points like that's standard stuff. That can always be scary, especially if you don't have anything to defend yourself with. But as far as Resident Evil 7 went along, it became less and less creepy. I didn't really, like I said, I didn't really get scared with Resident Evil 7. 8 had a couple of scare moments. I think I remember live streaming the beginning portion of the game, which I'll probably might have on screen here as I talk over the visuals, and the atmosphere, just the way it starts off, like there's barely any sound. It's just it's just the sound of your footsteps, the ambulance, and you can hear things rustling in the background as you're walking through these dark woods, or when you're in a building and you hear something going off upstairs, and of course the lichens appeared and everything like that, which I have to hand it to Capcom on this one. It seems like they took the feedback from the 7th game and actually gave us variety. We got variety in creatures now. We got these zombie-like dried up humanoids. We got them. We got these cyborg things. I'm not going to go into the whole story and lore of Resident Evil 8. There's actually a lot packed in there compared to 7. I think 8 kind of connects everything a little bit more rather than 7. I know this is a sequel to the last game, but it's still like a direct sequel. It still feels as though 7 is kind of in its own universe until towards the end, where they feel like they have to bring it back into the Resident Evil universe. It's kind of hard to believe that Resident Evil 7 takes place in the same universe that Resident Evil 6 takes place in, or Resident Evil 5, and people are still just like, oh, there's a lot of weird stuff going on. I didn't know about any of this. Really? You really didn't know about any of this? Did you see Resident Evil 6? I mean, a freaking plane went down in China. I mean, which released a virus that turned everyone into zombies. I don't know how these two things connect. How some people in the world still don't know, in the Resident Evil world, still aren't aware of what is actually going on. So I find that very odd. But Resident Evil always had a habit of being, over the top B movie-ish, and I love it, man. I love it. I was more of a fan of the later Resident Evils. I really like the originals also, also like the horror element and stuff like that. But I was never put off by much of the action. I actually got a lot of play out of Resident Evil 6 and 4. The only one I really didn't like was 5. I think 5 was a great Resident Evil co-op game. It was a lot of fun playing it with friends. And the Mercenaries mode was possibly the best. I think that's what really got me in the Mercenaries. I just got really good at it. But besides that, 5 I didn't really care about too much. But 8 it's starting to bring me back into the fold. And I'm glad that they were bringing back the whole Mercenaries thing. I thought a lot of the extra content in Resident Evil 7 was relatively boring, except for the there's actually 2 little expansions, and it was Not a Hero, which I really enjoyed, and it was the I can't remember. I think it was called Sisters. It was with how the Baker family became who they became, in the main game once Ethan showed up. And let me just say this too. Ethan Winters, I didn't really care for him in the 7th game. Like, him and Mia, I didn't really like. It wasn't, I will give them in Resident Evil 8. And I would say it wasn't until like the end of Resident Evil 7 where Ethan sort of just kind of buckled up and said, okay, you know what? I'm ready to do this. I'm ready to go out and I'm ready to fight. He already kind of has that mentality in A, and they actually explain why he's more proficient with weapons, and why he's obviously a little less scared this time around, just more angry that this is all happening again. And even his actor sort of betrays emotion much better this time around. He was just so nonchalant in the first game. Even when a lot of crazy stuff was happening to him. Oh, my leg is cut off. Here, let me reattach my leg. If you did get that cutscene, here, let me reattach my leg. Oh, well, that's cool. It reattached somehow by magic. That's all the reaction you're gonna have, Ethan? That's really it? I never understood that, how he could just be just so nonchalant about that stuff. It wasn't until, and then 8 kind of brought it around. He's realizing, hey, this is bigger than me, but this is also This is also something I've been through before, but that doesn't make it any less effective on, you know, his psyche. Like he's very upset that he has to go through all of this again, but he knows what he has to do. He's more proficient in his way of getting it done. I really enjoyed Ethan. His character this time around compared to the last installment. Maya once again doesn't really do much for me. She's not in it as much. It's nice to see that they went back to the old model version of Chris Redfield. I did not like the way he looked in 7, but it's nice to see this version. He does look like an older version of, you know, his original model, of what you'll see from like Resident Evil 6 or what you'll see for Resident Evil 5. You know, I just wish there was more. I would say on a scale of 1 to 10. I'm gonna go ahead and give this a score. I'm gonna give it an 8 out of 10. I'm not gonna talk about it anymore. All I gotta say is just that I really enjoyed it. I'm hoping for the next game that we can kind of move on from this first person stuff. Yes, I am still that person. I am still that guy that don't really care for the first person stuff all that much. I think it works here. I think when playing as Ethan Winters as the protagonist and them trying to go back to throwing a little bit more horror into it, even though some people said that, I guess Capcom is saying that people played 7 and they complained that it was too scary. What? I don't understand it. No, that game was not that scary. The mold was boring. If it wasn't for the Baker family, I probably wouldn't have enjoyed 7 as much as I did. And honestly, I still think it's probably, on a scale of 1 to 10, it's definitely Resident Evil 7's a 7. Yeah, so Resident Evil 8, I enjoyed slightly better. I like the antagonist a little bit more, a lot more actually. The internet especially seems to like Lady Dimitrescu and her daughters. but moving on from that, I think Heisenberg was probably one of, if probably not my favorite villain in here, and I really enjoyed it. I was not expecting them to do as much as they did, to fit so much in such a small time frame, because you can pretty much beat this game relatively fast. I mean, you can pretty much do that with all the Resident Evils. I still think Resident Evil 2 was probably the longest Resident Evil game, but compared to the Resident Evil 3 remake, which you can probably beat in like 3 hours, I was just like, this is a breath of fresh air, man. This is actually, you know, this is actually freaking trying. I mean, this feels like there wasn't that much taken out. Sure, there was some stuff changed around, like if you look at the original concepts for the characters and the bad guys and the good guys, a lot of the stuff had been changed around, but it didn't feel like a lot of stuff was taken out of the game. Resident Evil 3's remake felt like a lot of stuff was taken out. Maybe there was a time crunch. Maybe they really were trying to just make a Resident Evil 2 plus 3 remake, but Resident Evil 2 got further ahead in development, so they just released that by itself. Because now you can buy both games together, and I think it's called the Raccoon City Collection, which is a much better deal than buying them separate and just being like less of a product. This one felt more like a product, and I really enjoy Village, and I look forward to what Capcom does next. Now, since Ethan's story has come to a close and we move on to, I guess they're trying to set up the next generation of Resident Evil characters. I wish we can dial it back a little bit more. I know we're getting a Resident Evil 4 remake. Not too sure, still got fingers crossed. But I hope they can dial it back a little bit more, and we could probably see what the other characters are doing, Leon and Claire and the rest of them. Also, I knew Chris wasn't what he said he is. Okay, all the marketing is trying to be misleading. Obviously, they wasn't going to do that, because if they did, a lot of people would have been upset, including me. Chris has been a character since the first Resident Evil. Okay, he's been here since the beginning. He was literally the main character, him and Jill in the first one. If anything happens to those characters, I'm going to be really upset. And I'm sure other fans are really going to be upset too. So, alright guys, whether I actually put myself in this video or whether I just put some gameplay over it, I just want to thank you for watching. That's all I got. Sorry if I talked for so long. We're going on for about 15 minutes. This was actually supposed to be less than a 10-minute video, but hey, those are the breaks. Alright, thank you guys for watching. Really enjoy Resident Evil Village, Resident Evil 8. Thank you Capcom for throwing us another Resident Evil here. That's actually a lot of fun. I actually enjoyed it more than 7. And also, don't listen to too many people about those horror elements. I think the horror elements could be ramped up a little bit more, especially when you have weapons and stuff like that. But if you want to make a stage like what you did with the haunted house with Donna, whoo, that thing's gonna haunt my nightmares, man. All right, that's all I got. Thank you guys for watching. Take care. Catch you guys in the next one. Sora Roxas out.